what to do when your life stinks. Even as a Christian, when your life stinks, why does it stink? How do you get over it? How do you overcome it? In John chapter 11, the story you might hear about Lazarus today if you go to church on this Sunday in Lent. Beautiful story. I can't get away from these stories in the Gospel of John. John chapter 11, verse 39, Martha says to Jesus, talking about her brother Lazarus, who has been dead in the tomb for 4 days. Look it up. It's in the King James Version. She says, "He stinketh." He stinks. And Jesus responds with one of the greatest verses in the entire New Testament and says, talks about life, finding life in the midst of stink, and says to Martha, "I am the resurrection and life. He who believes in me, even though he dies, yet he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." So there's a couple different layers to see this whole story in John chapter 11 about life after death. Yes, maybe, we're assured of that. We believe in Jesus. We have the right beliefs. We don't have to worry about that, eternal life. But Jesus also says, whoever believes and lives in me will never die. So Christianity has to have something to do with life now, today, not just after we die. If it doesn't have something to say for a full life now, forget about it. It does. And in the story of Lazarus, and take what's helpful and leave the rest, this is my slant on it. This is what's working for me for life now. But even Lazarus, the name Lazarus means, Eleazar means God helps. And even the town that Lazarus is from, Bethany, means the house of suffering. So here Jesus goes to help the one who is suffering in the tomb, Lazarus. And we are all in our tombs, and Lazarus represents all of humanity. He represents all people. And Jesus comes and stands before the tomb. And I believe that there's 3 commandments that he gives, 3 powerful invitations that Jesus gives to help us come alive and to live life. And the first is, roll away the stone. Roll away the stone. And they roll away the stone. And in my life, for lessons for this life, what could rolling away the stone mean? To me, it means identifying and removing. Why does my life stink? Because of the barriers, the hindrances, the blocks that I put up to the love of God and to the life of God flowing. God's life is flowing constantly to us all the time. In fact, in John 10, Jesus says, "The thief comes to steal and destroy. I've come that you may have life and have it to the full." Life and love is always flowing to us, but my life stinks is because I put up blocks and barriers to prevent the flow of that love and life for some reason. So God, help me to identify the barriers and the hindrances, to remove the self-limiting beliefs, behaviors, or as recovery says, hurts, habits, and hang-ups, to at first identify them and begin to remove them so I can experience this life and love. The second commandment that Jesus gives is, Lazarus, come out. And Lazarus comes out. And to me, why does my life stink? Because I choose for it to stink. Why am I sad, depressed, angry, and struggle? Because I choose to be. I choose to feel it. And don't argue with me. Argue with Viktor Frankl, who says we choose our attitude in any given situation and circumstance. Abraham Lincoln, who says people are about just as happy as they make up their minds to be. And even if we go back to the book of Deuteronomy, there's a very clear choice that God invites us to. It's this: choose life or choose death. And I'm going to run out of time here, man. I could preach on this sermon, this passage forever. But we get to choose. And I choose my depression. It's beyond chemical imbalances, folks. All problems are psychological, all solutions are spiritual, and a part of it comes down to the power of choice. Choose life or choose death. Lazarus can choose, you and I can choose to come out of the tomb or remain in it. And often we choose to remain in it. We choose to feel miserable and be miserable. Why? Because it's safer there. And we're afraid to come out and enter into life. The last invitation, the third one that Jesus gives, is unbind him and let him loose. To be unbound. Why does my life stink? Because I try to do it all myself. And there's something in this as an invitation to vulnerably trust God. Lazarus couldn't unbind himself. He couldn't take off his own grave clothes. He needed the help of others. He needed the help of God through others. He needed God's help. So to be unbound is to allow God to help us, To not try to figure it out. I get miserable when I try to figure it out myself, and I get fearful and I get frustrated. To open to God, to surrender to God, to allow God to remove and unwrap us so that we can come alive. So this invitation, I'm out of time, I'm going over time. The invitation is to come alive and to live life now. And we do that by awareness, right? Awareness, identifying the hindrances and the blocks to love. 2, choosing, desire and choosing to come out of the tomb and live that full and abundant life. 3, allowing and surrendering and opening our hearts to God to flow through. We don't have to figure it all out. And we come alive with nothing to lose, nothing to hide, nothing to fear, and nothing to prove. I want to be a wild man. I want to be a wild man and live my life that way. Maybe you want to be a wild man, wild woman, to come alive, to be unbound and let loose to live. This is what Christianity is all about, and I want to follow in the way of the Master who invites me to this life. So, take what's helpful, leave the rest. Until next time, we'll get her at least in there. She's way down the line. Until next time, may you and I, with the help of the lessons in this story, live all the days of our life.